Hello, everybody, and welcome to this brand new YouTube Live. I am Jocelyn Starfeather. I am delighted to bring this to you today. We are going to go way, way in deeply and talk all about the upcoming Saturn-Neptune conjunction. Now, this is a really big conjunction between two of our heavy-hitting outer planets, Saturn and Neptune. They are both very strongly working with us right now. And I can assure you, we are already feeling this transit, even though it will not be exact until February 20th, 2026. We are already well within the energy, well within the world events and the felt sense of how this transit will be and what it is bringing to us. So I also want to tell you as we're beginning that this is a topic, this conjunction, the meaning of it, the deep, profound meaning that it holds for us, and how it will be shifting and changing our world in very real ways and very powerful ways is something that I feel super passionate about, super strongly about. So you will get a strong transmission here today as I'm sharing all this with you. And I have some beautiful slides to share. We'll look at the charts. It's going to be a really powerful journey. So thank you all for joining me, and I hope you will love every minute of this presentation about the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. So to get us started here, let's just go to the chart of the exact conjunction. This will be happening on February 20th, 2026. I have put in a time here of 12 noon New York time. And at that time, and for an extended period of time, longer than just that 1 minute, okay, throughout the middle of the day, Eastern time, Saturn will be here at 0 degrees and 45 minutes of Aries, conjunct with Neptune, also at 0 degrees and 45 minutes of Aries. Now, you'll notice from the very beginning that this is quite an interesting degree point, 0 degrees of Aries. This is called by astrologers the Aries point. This is the very first degree of the zodiac. So we're looking at an astrological event, the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, that happens approximately every 37 years. One of the important times that it occurred was in 1989, and it coincided with the fall of the Berlin Wall, the bringing down of the Berlin Wall. And so this transit tends to mark shifts in eras, and it particularly coincides with times of major societal change, where our governments are changing or our collective belief systems around how should we organize, what kind of society should we have. All of this gets called into question, and we are asked to rework, recalibrate, redo, revise around those types of themes. So we are clearly seeing that happen again. And this is why I say that we are already very much feeling the energies of this. And I'm going to go into a few details about what's happening in the world later in the presentation to just give you a really clear and practical sense of this and what it can mean for us. So this 0 point of Aries is a place that Saturn and Neptune have not come together at for at least thousands and thousands and thousands of years. If you go way back in the ephemeris, you will see that I think it was, let's see, I didn't check this right before recording, but I believe that it was prior to the birth of Christ, the last time that this conjunction happened anywhere near the beginning of Aries. And I think at that point it was 3 degrees of Aries, not 0 degrees. So there's no time in recorded history that they have ever had a conjunction exactly at 0 degrees of Aries. Now, this Aries point, 0 degrees of Aries, is really significant because it indicates a new beginning. It indicates a clean slate. And I am really seeing this as we have a chance here to wipe clean the slate of this world we've been living in that has become so dysfunctional that we know where the governments are not working, the politics are not working, the societal constructs are not working. There are so many aspects to this that are social, that are affecting our young people, that are affecting those who are on the poverty level, that are affecting those that are in war-torn areas. There are so many people in the world that are really struggling, that are really suffering right now. And so this is our chance to break down those old paradigms. This is really a chance for us to break down that old reality. And what we're going to find, and what we're already finding, is that the old world is becoming obsolete right before our very eyes. And we have the chance to birth something very new. So this is a new beginning energy. This is a clean slate energy, and it's really very exciting. Now, another part of this that we want to tune in with is just the Aries energy in general. So the sign of Aries, this is ruled by the planet Mars. And so part of our potential here in what we can create and the changes that we can affect in our world are going to be around how do we build our new world and create a new world order that is based on integrity, courage, that is based on our highest values, that is based on our sovereignty, right? These are very, very strong qualities of the zodiac sign of Aries and the planet Mars. This is about us having and fostering and gaining the courage to not only speak the truth, but also live the truth. This is a very pioneering energy. Aries is the one that is able to see the new path, see the new way forward when nobody else can see it. And Aries or Mars, right, both of them being equivalent in this description of the archetype. Aries or Mars will go ahead and forge that new path. We'll bushwhack that path through the forest. We'll claim the new territory to make the path. We'll do whatever is needed, right? He has courage. He has bravery. This is the sacred masculine. And he will forge that new path. And then everybody will see that this is the highest path and they will follow it, right? It's a very, very leadership oriented energy. It's a very high integrity energy of like, yes, I know what's right. I have the courage to claim it. I am standing in my sovereignty and my own agency. And this is where I'm going to go. So we really want to lean into as this transit is happening. And I'm going to tell you so much more about Saturn and Neptune and what those planets coming together mean. But I just want to give you this Aries foundation for it as we begin. Okay. So as we're moving through this transit, and as we are already feeling these world events and these energies so strongly, we want to make sure that we're really leaning into the high frequency qualities of Aries and Mars, the true sacred masculine, the courage, the sovereignty, the boldness, right? The fire. This is a fire sign, Aries. This is like the fire that we know what we need to do and we're going to make it happen. And so we might be thinking about like, what is worth fighting for? What is worth standing up for in your life? What is worth taking a stand for? And what are we living for? Aries is the initiator. He's very much about initiating life, initiating a new way, right? So what are we really living for? Are we going to just succumb to the fear-based tactics? Are we going to succumb to the statements that we have to have war? Or are we going to stand up for something different? And we're going to be feeling this so, so strongly. Another important Aries question here is, what do we claim in our full power, agency, and sovereignty that we want to carry forward into the new world that is being created? Now, Saturn and Neptune hold a lot of keys to why this is about the new world order, why this is about breaking the false model of the world. But we want to bring to all of the qualities I'll tell you soon about Saturn and Neptune, this Aries highest potential, the highest potential of the true sacred masculine. The negative side of Aries, right? The shadow side of Aries and Mars can be an over influence of the ego, the aggrandizement of the personality to this extent that it's just completely ridiculous, right? This is also the distorted masculine, the non-sacred masculine that we see so brazenly in our world today. It can be an overemphasized focus on conflict, on aggression, on confrontation in a way that is just not useful. in a way that is not helpful, in a way that leads to war, for example. And so we may see these negative qualities of Aries as well, and we are seeing them. And we want to really take a stand, right? We want to really stand in our own sovereignty, our own agency in every way that we can to stand up against the war, to stand up against the over-aggression, to stand up against the overly dominating egos. So this is not easy, right? This is big, but you can see how all of this that I'm sharing about Aries is just in full effect in our world already at this time. I'm going to share a few slides with you about the planet Mars and the zodiac sign of Aries that is from a recent course that I taught, and I think you'll find these very interesting and very powerful. So this is a kind of personification of the planet Mars, okay? This image here, right? This is the masculine youth, the sacred masculine. And there's even an energy here of like Archangel Michael who carries the sword. There's the energy of the one who stands for light, stands for truth, stands for honor and integrity. And so this is Mars, this is Aries. This is the high frequency side of this sacred masculine energy. Mars and Aries represent for us our power and courage, our energy, our passion and our conviction, our ability to make things happen, our sacred masculine ability to take action. And Mars carries a sword. You know, he is the warrior. He is the warrior for truth and light. He will cut through illusions. This is happening just on an incredible level in our world, right? The hidden truths coming to light. And he can help us to cut ourselves free from anything that is holding us back, to cut ourselves free from any lies or illusions that maybe we've been holding on to. And I always think it's so important when considering this archetype of Mars and of Aries to consider the deep meaning of the translation of the Sanskrit mantra to Mars. So the Sanskrit texts, these ancient Vedic texts, show us that the people practicing these traditions from 5,000 years ago or more had an extremely close relationship with the planets, with Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, those planets that are the traditional planets, the planets that we can see with the naked eye in the sky. And so they had these really deep understandings of the energy, the archetype of each planet. And listen to what this 5,000-year-old mantra to Mars says. Supporting the womb of all existence, Mars shines forth with the radiance of beauty enhanced by love, the sun wielding energy in his hand. We bow down to Mars, bearer of welfare. Om, we bow down to Mars, bearer of welfare. Now, this is so beautiful because this is speaking of the true sacred masculine who supports the womb of all existence. This is the feminine, right? This is the sacred masculine upholding and supporting the sacred feminine, the womb of all existence from which life is created. And he is wielding energy in his hand. He is representing beauty. He is representing truth. This is so powerful to understand these ancient perceptions of the planets before they got layered over with the patriarchal cultures, right? So as we lean into this energy of the 0 degree point of Aries, we want to keep this in mind. We want to let ourselves be connected with the true and original sacred masculine, not the patriarchal version of that, right? And so I have a few more slides to share that are very interesting to consider. Now, in this presentation, previous to this slide, which I'm not going to go into all of that today, but previous to this slide in the full presentation, I moved through showing that as far back as 40 or 45,000 years ago, we have evidence of these incredible sacred feminine-based matriarchal cultures that were peaceful, that instead of weapons, they had art, and that were civilizations that lasted for thousands and thousands of years without going to war. And so we went through that in the presentation, and then we come to this part where, especially during the last 4,000 years or so, we see the rise of the patriarchy. And starting around that time, women who hold the womb of existence were shamed, scorned, raped, killed, and outcast, right, for practicing what they had been doing for tens of thousands of years, healing modalities, for being midwives, for being herbalists and priestesses, and which are designed to uphold life itself. All of that was cast out. All of that was deemed bad, pagan, evil, right? Now, this is where the distortion of the sacred masculine comes in to our stories, into our myths, into the conditioning that we're still receiving today. In addition to that, the indigenous cultures, which were originally understood to be the holders of the greatest wisdom and the most advanced spiritual technologies. So we're talking about the Druids, the Minoans, the Pelasgians in Greece, right? The people of North America, South America, Europe, Africa, the Middle East, were treated the same as the women, right? Were put down, and everything was changed. And worst of all, this energy of Mars, this energy of the sacred masculine, was cast as the perpetrator and was turned into the god of war, who used violence, who used trickery, and who did so in order to hold ultimate power over the women and children and the quote other races, right? This idea of we are different, we are separate, was coming in more and more, rather than the unitive and life-focused belief systems of the original matriarchal cultures. And this is the paradigm that we're seeing playing out so blatantly, so like a caricature of it, right, is what we see in our world today. And so now we're carrying the shame, the terror, the self-loathing of that. And when we take a look and we step back, we can see this is not true. This is not the truth of who we really are. This is not the truth of who the sacred masculine actually is. And we can see how deeply we have been misled from those who raised up the patriarchy, right? So these characteristics that we see of war and aggression and violence that have been applied falsely to the masculine principle in the world are unacceptable. And it has wounded the sacred masculine, and it has wounded the sacred feminine. And so I believe that this conjunction happening at 0 degrees of Aries is happening for us to wipe the slate clean from the past, to start over, and to set things right. Now, clearly we have a long way to go with that. But these caricatures that we're seeing on the world stage, these absolutely ridiculous acts by our leaders, the ridiculous people that we have in charge, for example, in the United States right now, these are showing us the worst of the distorted masculine. The way that people are being treated all around the world, the way that people are being lied to, being thrust into war, being thrust into poverty. This is completely unacceptable. We cannot go on in this way. And so this conjunction is going to come in, as well as how Saturn and Neptune are not only having their conjunction together, but also working with Pluto, working with Uranus in these incredible kite formations, okay? Which I explained in my last video. If you want to know what I mean by a kite formation, check out my previous video to this, which was about the eclipse portal from September 7th to the 21st that we're currently in as I'm recording this video. These 4 outer planets are working together in an extremely powerful way to let us stand up and say, no more, we do not consent to this, and the changes are going to happen. Now, Pluto in Aquarius is a very strong part of this too. I'm going to make a new video about Pluto in Aquarius soon, so keep your eyes out for that. Pluto in Aquarius is ensuring that these social and societal changes are going to happen. But Saturn and Neptune are working favorably with Pluto, and they are in a sextile to Pluto and Aquarius for this conjunction, and that is important as well. So as I was saying, this distorted masculine is so front and center on the world stage at this time. This is because all of the forces of creation, all of our souls, the earth, the planets, all of us collectively who stand for truth and integrity are requiring that these lies, deception, and distortions of the false masculine be revealed and brought out into the light for everyone to see. This is so that everyone, including those who would not otherwise look so closely at this, everyone will be forced to see that this is not okay. We do not consent to this, and it has to change. So this is the revolution that's happening right now. It is already well underway. It is going to be amplified between now and February 20th. Major things are going to happen to shift all of these changes into place going forward throughout 2026. So these are big years that we are moving through. And this archetype of Mars, or Aries, holds the keys. This true sacred masculine, the original sacred masculine, as we see in the Sanskrit texts from 5,000 or more years ago, supporting the womb of all creation, right? He is the symbol of our reawakening, hand in hand with the sacred feminine. This is really important. So that Mars Aries energy is incredibly important. We want to look at not only the planets involved, Saturn and Neptune, which I'll tell you about next, but we also want to look at where in the zodiac is this happening. So it's happening in Aries. I've given you an overview of what that brings in, the importance of reclaiming the true sacred masculine in our world. And it's at 0 degrees of Aries, the very first degree of the zodiac, which represents a massive new beginning. Everything gets to be new. Everything gets to have the slate wiped clean and be new once again. So let's look now at the planets involved. So I'm going to go back to the chart just for a minute. And on this date of February 20th, 2026, we will have Saturn and Neptune together here at 0 degrees and 45 minutes of Aries. Now, if we look at the chart for today, for example, and we find 0 degrees of Aries, we can see Neptune is already right there. Saturn is very close by. And Saturn has actually already entered into Aries, retrograded back to Pisces temporarily right now at this time. They've already been almost exactly conjunct at the early degrees of Aries. So they're very close together. That's why we're feeling this so strongly already. That's why these things that I'm going to talk about in this video, you will see, are already happening in our world. But we are moving toward the exact conjunction on February 20th in a very purposeful way, okay? In a very action-oriented way because it's happening in Aries. And we are already claiming the new world as we go through this. Now, I want to take a brief moment here just to share something with you that is a free gift. And so if you're new to the Sacred Planet community, or if you haven't yet claimed my alchemical astrology chart reading guide, I want to invite you to look in the description field below this video and get this guide, because this really powerful astrology that I'm talking about in this video and that I speak about in so many of my videos is so incredibly important for us to understand as we are navigating these times of massive change in our world. And so the more that you can understand about your own birth chart and how the transits are working with you, as well as the astrology of the collective, the more tuned in you're going to be, the more you'll be able to receive the gifts and the up levels and the high frequency energy of all these transits. So go down into the description field below the video, click on that link, get the free alchemical astrology chart reading guide. You will love it, and you will learn so much about the deeper meaning of the planets, the signs of the zodiac, the houses in your chart, and so much more. This also includes 5 very important asteroids that are working with us strongly right now too. So there's a lot to discover there, and I hope you will really enjoy it. One other note that I have for you is I want to make sure everybody's aware that I will be going back to Egypt from February 7th to the 21st, 2026. And you will notice that this includes the date of the exact Saturn-Neptune conjunction. This is going to be an extremely powerful pilgrimage, the Mysteries of the Great Goddess 2. We held the Mysteries of the Great Goddess 1 pilgrimage in April 2025, and it was unbelievably beautiful and powerful and life-changing for all of those who attended. And so Voxy and Cynthia and I are getting together again. We are going to lead the Mysteries of the Great Goddess pilgrimage a second time. And when I was there in Egypt in April 2025, when we were in the Great Pyramid, I received a very powerful transmission informing me that I should bring people back and have our group gathered inside of the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid on the exact day and at the exact time of the Saturn-Neptune conjunction on February 20th, 2026, and that we will be holding and amplifying and sending out the light for the entire collective so that this shift can happen in a really good and powerful and positive way. And that was the instruction from my guide. So I know when I receive these very strong instructions that I should follow them, and that's what we are doing. So if you would like to join us in Egypt at this powerful time, if you'd like to be there in person with me for this exact conjunction, come on in. It's going to be amazing. And I want to let you know that this link will also be in the description field below the video. And early bird registration to get the very best price, the very lowest price, ends on September 30th. So be sure to register by the end of September to get that best price on the pilgrimage. Okay, so that was my brief interlude before we come back to the astrology notes here. So I want to tell you about the two planets involved. I've told you about Aries and how I see that Aries is really, really critically important in what this transit will mean for us. Consider all of that information about Aries and returning to the true sacred masculine as a foundation for everything that I'm going to now tell you about the planets. So I'll tell you first about Saturn, and then I'll tell you about Neptune so you can get a really good, clear understanding of what both of them represent. And these are also slides from a course that I taught recently. So here are some powerful slides, powerful information about the planet Saturn. So Saturn is an interesting figure because we relate Saturn to boundaries, form, structure, limitation, and more that I'll tell you about in a minute, right? But kind of these limiting qualities, the conditioning, that which limits us. And interestingly, when we go back, further back, which I feel is always so important to do, when we go back in to very early Roman and pre-Greek times, we find that the people there celebrated Saturn. And they had a festival every year that was called Saturnalia. This occurred every December, so connected with the winter solstice. And this was a time of revelry and feasting, gift giving, and free speech. How interesting, right? That seems very opposite of the qualities of Saturn that we know today. Saturnalia also has inspired the name of Saturday, which is Saturn's Day. And this is a day when we get to take a break from our work and responsibilities and we can relax. How interesting, right? So the more ancient perception of this archetype of Saturn was actually one of celebration and free speech, freedom, right? And so there's this energy of the recognition that life is short, and so we're going to celebrate and make the most of every day. Saturn was also associated in these early ancient times with abundance, wealth, agriculture, liberation, and cycles of renewal. When we look in the later mythology, it's honestly really laughable. The later mythology shows Saturn as this very severe character who ate his children so he could stay in power longer. And that is just ridiculous. You know, that was like the later machinations of the patriarchy, and we don't really need to focus on that. We want to look at the more ancient, and then we want to look at what does Saturn represent for us today. And so when we do that, we can see that there are two sides to Saturn, and we want to allow ourselves to tune into both of them, right? So Saturn brings balance to us because he has this somber, serious side. He reminds us of time. He reminds us of death. He also reminds us that we need to work. We need to work really hard to achieve the things we want to achieve in this lifetime. And then the other side of Saturn is the celebratory side, which invites us to enjoy this moment continually and to celebrate being alive. So that energy is coming into the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, and I'll tell you a little bit more about Saturn as well. So here are some of the things that Saturn represents astrologically. He is structure and definition, form, limits, and boundaries. Very important about Saturn for our conversation today is he is the foundation. He represents a solid foundation where we can build something that will last and that will stand the test of time. So this is very fortuitous for us with the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, because this tells us that the new world we're going to be building here, going forward from the time we're in now, we can build it so that it will last. We can build it so it holds that high integrity and honor of Mars and Aries, and so that it will last, it will stand the test of time. Saturn also represents our responsibilities, our obligations, and something that I will talk about in a little bit, but I just want to bring in on this line is our highest contribution work that we're here to do, right? So it's like we have a responsibility to make the world a better place while we're here. We have a responsibility to our friends, our family, to be a good person, to help inspire others when they're down, to assist and support the community. So there are certain responsibilities that can feel heavy at times, but they're actually meant to be good. They're meant to be a positive contribution that we're giving to the world. Saturn represents reality and what keeps reality in structure and form, what keeps reality stable. And so this is something we feel shaking at this time, as Neptune, which represents boundlessness, has no form at all, which I'll tell you about soon, comes together with Saturn. It's like it's shaking up our reality. We don't know if we can trust this reality. Is the reality stable or not? We're feeling that really strongly. There's also a piece about Saturn here that represents individual and social conditioning and conformity to what we see in the world around us, and conditioning patterns in life and in society. So what have we been taught all our lives? What are the rules and regulations that have been handed down to us? What are the societal structures that we've been told this is just the way it is? And as Saturn and Neptune come together, we get a chance to break out and break free of all of that. But it's not easy. Saturn also represents our worldly position, so our position of leadership or authority that we hold as individuals. And he represents our career, our work. In the chart, it's our midheaven or MC. This is our point of highest contribution, what we came here to do, our mission and purpose, what we came here to achieve and accomplish in this lifetime. So all of this is coming in into our considerations of the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. And just to say something about the planet Saturn, Saturn is this incredible planet with these beautiful rings that are made of ice, of actually ice from liquid water that's been frozen. And Saturn has this beautiful hexagon at the North Pole. So there are these elements of form and structure that are just incredibly beautiful. There's this element here with Saturn of the sacred architecture of the universe and of the cosmos that we want to keep in mind. So structure is a good thing in this sense. There's the challenging side of it, which is limitation, but also we do need structure. We do need form. Our bodies, we need to take on a physical form, just as the planet Saturn here is taking this beautiful form with the rings. We need things to have form and structure in order for them to work, in order for us to work with them in 3D reality. And so that's an important part of Saturn. There's a little bit more here that I'll tell you about this archetype of the planet Saturn that includes elders, wisdom keepers, and ancestors. So Saturn is the elder masculine. So we have Mars or Aries being the younger masculine. And this is more of the grandfather energy, the elder masculine energy. Saturn is also representing the physical 3D reality, the density of the 3D world that we move through every day, our specific role and contribution that we came here to give to the world, and which Saturn will continually direct us back to, particularly at our Saturn returns, which I'll say more about in a minute. Saturn represents what we're actually aware of and what we can detect with our five main senses, which is easily, readily, physically available to us, right? The 3D world and how we connect with that. He represents as well time and space and mortality. So the awareness of the structure of having a certain number of years to live or a certain number of hours in the day. The social maturation process by which we accept the conditions and limitations given to us by society. And again, as I'll say again and again, when Saturn and Neptune come together, Neptune represents the complete freedom from all of that conditioning, right? So we have a big choice to make at this time around what do we want to be liberated from. And Saturn represents authority and the power of those in positions of authority, which in the Saturn sextile to Pluto in Aquarius, right? We have Saturn in Aries for this conjunction. Sextile to Pluto in Aquarius, right? It's asking how do we choose to overthrow those positions of authority or let those old ideas of what authority even means die and be composted so that we can rise and become something new in place of that old concept. Now, Saturn really wants for us to do our good work, to build solid structures, to make the most of every day. And there's this element of Saturn of looking even beyond this lifetime, knowing that someday this individual human here will no longer be here on the earth in the same way. And so he's inviting us to leave a positive legacy and to make the most of our time while we're here. Now, this is really hard. This is something that's difficult to face, our mortality. So people will often turn away from this Saturnian work, right? People will also feel that's too heavy, too serious, but we don't want to do that, especially for this conjunction. Okay, for this conjunction involving Saturn, we want to turn toward how can I offer my highest contribution in the world? What do I have to give that will actually bring me great joy to give it? And how can I even more fully make the commitments, create the structures, the form, the foundations to bring that into the world? Because we are all so deeply needed. This is truly an all hands on deck kind of time right now. Put a yes in the chat if you're feeling that, everybody. And throughout this video, please comment, let me know, how are you feeling? How are you doing? What are you thinking about what I share? But if you're feeling that it's an all hands on deck kind of time right now, please put a big yes in the chat because I just want to see your responses and see how you're feeling that. I have been shown by my guides that there is a tidal wave of humans rising up, awakening, changing our lives, changing our minds, changing our belief systems at this time. And we are coming forward to offer our gifts collectively to make a tremendous positive difference for the future of our world, right? So the question for each and every one of us is, what is my contribution, right? That's a question from Saturn. What is your contribution meant to be? And when we lean into this, when we lean toward it and say, okay, what can I offer? What did I come here to do? Then we are leaning in toward Saturn. We are accepting the mission that Saturn shows us that's written in our birth chart. And this will bring the greatest breakthroughs you can possibly imagine into your life when you dare to turn toward that. Because then Saturn allows us to move beyond our fears and our stuck places, to break free from our conditioning, to release the density and heaviness that has seemed to keep us trapped and limited. And we become free and we become able to live the fullest life, the highest life, and really live in joy and fulfillment. So then Saturn is able to send us his gifts, right? This is very powerful, and this is really important to keep in mind as Saturn is working with us so strongly in this Saturn-Neptune conjunction. And I just want to mention here that we have these planetary rites of passage with all of the planets, and the Saturnian ones are really a huge influence on our lives. So we have the first Saturn return between age 28 to 30. We have our second Saturn return between age 58 to 60. And our third Saturn return, if we are gifted to live that long, then between age 88 to 90. Now, each one of these carries its own unique and different themes, but generally, and especially at the first one, okay, and also very strongly at the second one, what usually happens is that we're redirected by Saturn. And the way I like to explain this is picture two paths, okay, two divergent paths that go off in different directions. You're happily at age 27 or 57 going down this path. And as far as you know, it's the right path for you, it's the one that maybe everybody told you is the right path, or you believe it's the right path. And suddenly you find this path is just filled with obstacles and limitations and things that you can't get down the path anymore. This is Saturn sending the obstacles in the way, because Saturn knows that your highest path is the one over here, the divergent one going off in the opposite direction. This is the path of your mission and purpose and your highest contribution. And so he wants to direct you this way, the other way from where you thought you were going. And so he's putting obstacles in the path you were on because he wants to redirect you. He wants you to turn around and make new understandings, learn new lessons, start to see reality in a different way, start to create new structures in your life so you can take that path that he knows is the true one and get on to your highest purpose and highest contribution. And it's not easy to make that shift, but that's what we're called to do at these Saturn return times. It is a frustrating time often, a time where we can feel depression, we can feel anxiety, we can feel like, I don't know what's going wrong. I don't know why I can't do this thing I thought I was going to be doing, but it is all for a purpose. And this is Saturn helping us to get on our highest path, our highest destiny. So that's a little bit about Saturn to just help you really understand on a deeper level what Saturn wants for us, because all the planets have things that they want to help us do, that they want to help us carry out in our lives and in the world. So that's what Saturn brings for us. Now, I want to also share with you about Neptune, because we have here the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, and Neptune is the other half of the equation here. So let's look at Neptune. And I have a few more slides. And these are each just a small portion of this larger course that I taught, but I hope it will be really helpful for you in coming to a deeper understanding with these planets. So the planet Neptune. Neptune encompasses not only the depths of the watery realms, but also the heights of the cosmos and the multiverse. So Neptune is very vast. It's like all the way out into the cosmos, all the way down to the deepest layers of the oceans. These liminal realms are Neptune. Neptune is the 95% of reality that we cannot see, touch, or hear. Neptune is the things you know that there is no way you could logically know, but yet you know them as clear as day, right? Your intuition, your gut sense, your psychic sense. This is Neptune. Neptune is the dream time, right? This liminal space. When we go to sleep, we don't know where we go, but we go somewhere. We have other experiences. It's very nebulous, very liminal. Neptune is the songs of the whales and dolphins, which hold our world in balance, right? These energetic forces that we can't even see, but as we awaken and as we come into our spiritual abilities, we realize there is so much more going on here, making this world possible, making life possible than we have been told. Neptune is the infinite waters of the womb, right? The womb of the woman, the womb of the great goddess, the inconceivable depths of the black holes, the spaces from which creation is eternally and miraculously blossoming, like the birthing places of the wombs and the black holes and all these different places where creation originates in our world. This is Neptune. And for each of us personally, Neptune is very important because Neptune includes creativity, artistic expression, as well as compassion, empathy, and a deep loving care for all beings. So all of these qualities here on this slide are Neptune: sympathy, empathy, recognizing we are all one. And this is not just about humans. This is about all the plants, all the animals, the earth, the stars, all beings in creation. And what happens to one of us happens to all of us. Compassion, caring, love. And this is not our normal day-to-day perception of love, but this is like a very universal, all-encompassing, unending, infinite kind of love. The love that the earth has for all of the beings living here on her. The love that the creator, the force of creation out in the universe has for all of those things that they created. Selfless dedication to what is right and true. So there's this selflessness, there's this like wanting to give because we feel that empathy for all of the others. And spirituality is definitely a part of Neptune, and it recognizes, right? It's spirituality that recognizes all of this that I've said so far. And also creativity, artistic expression, being in a flow state where we're not in the thinking mind at all. We are just in the flow with the forces of creation, and we are flowing and creating and feeling amazing. Creating from the heart and soul and birthing new forms. All of this kind of creativity is Neptune as well. Neptune is healing and restoration. There is a sense here of the more that we surrender into what Neptune represents, the more we come back to our original natural state of oneness and perfection. So this includes energy healing and the call to become an energy healer. If you feel that, put a yes in the chat. I would love to hear. The restorative powers of the earth and the oceans and the cosmos. Deep releasing of past traumas and wounds. And there's an energy with Neptune of being able to just clear it in an instant. If we can just surrender deeply enough to the healing that is available to us, we can release it in a second. We can clear those past traumas, clear those wounds. And that's what energy healing can do. And so many beautiful healing modalities that are coming back into our consciousness today. Neptune also includes psychedelic journeys and the breakthroughs in healing that they can bring, right? The plant medicines that take us to these liminal states of being. It represents infinite connection to source, Reiki energy, and all different types of healing energy that flow through our hands, that flow through our bodies, the healing force of the earth, the natural healing ability of the body. Neptune is highest consciousness and true oneness. With this Neptunian consciousness, we know innately that to find myself, I must lose myself, which means letting go of any ego consciousness or individuated perception of oneself. So here with Neptune, nothing is separate, all is one. And that can be a little confusing, right? Because we do have to operate as individuals, you know, in the 3D reality. So it's very interesting then how this comes together with Saturn, because Saturn represents the individuated state. Saturn represents the conditioning of the culture that we receive that tells us that we're separate. And so bringing those together, Saturn and Neptune, really leads us into this place of needing to shatter the old belief systems and create entirely new belief systems that are in full truth and integrity for how we each choose to combine the Saturn and Neptune archetypes, for how we each choose to live as an individual while being aware of our true oneness that is our original state of being. When you can truly release the ego and any thoughts of separation or individual identity, then you merge into the eternal waters of the great cosmic ocean, right? This is very Neptunian. This is how it feels. There's a beautiful warmth and comfort that comes when we surrender into the Neptunian realms. It's like laying on the surface of the waves in the ocean and just letting yourself be rocked by the waters, or even a calm lake and just letting yourself be rocked, right? Or it's the feeling of drifting off to sleep, when we're really tired and we really need the sleep, and just that feeling of drifting away and letting ourselves let go of our waking consciousness. This is the comfort of Neptune. So Neptune brings us back to the essential truth of who we really are. He reminds us that separation is only an illusion, that we have always been one with all that is. So Neptune is a return to source consciousness. And finally, the last slide I'll share with you here is that Neptune is everything that connects us into that highest consciousness. Our dreams, our visions, our intuition, our imagination, spirituality, magic and miracles, synchronicities, meditation, shamanic journeying, dissolution, dissolving, and merging. So all of this is Neptune. Now, again, this is really vast. Neptune takes us to a place that's hard to even really fully comprehend with the logical mind. But you have a felt sense of it now, right? And say yes to me in the chat if you get it, right? Like hopefully from these slides, I've given you a really good felt sense of what Saturn represents on the deeper levels, what Neptune represents on the deeper levels, and also what Mars and Aries represent on the deeper levels. So then coming back to our map of the transits, let me share that slide once again here. Let's bring this all together. What does all of this mean for us? This is just so incredibly powerful to bring all of these really quite disparate energies, because Aries or Mars is very different than Saturn, very different than Neptune, and Saturn and Neptune are complete opposites of one another. So what does this mean for us? How can we work with this in our world? So this is about fundamentally rethinking our concepts of how the world works. And this includes economics, this includes politics, this includes culture. This includes taking a new look at that conditioning that we've been given since we were little kids by our parents, our teachers, all of the authority figures in our lives, and that we deeply took in, through osmosis as well as by conscious learning. But we also take those things in a very subconscious way. And what do we want to question about that now? What is becoming clear in your life? And I invite you to write the answer to this in the comments if you feel called. What is becoming clear in your life that you no longer accept or want to be conditioned to? Even if you don't know how to step away from it, that's okay. The first step is realizing I no longer claim this as part of my identity. I no longer claim this as part of how I think the world has to work. Right? So this is like a huge reconfiguration of our belief systems about how things work, how things quote unquote have to be versus how they could be. And what do we choose for them to be, right? Bringing in the Aries, the sacred masculine. What do we claim in our power and sovereignty that we know they can be, that we want them to be? What do we want to see in the world when we look out with our highest integrity and our deepest values, and we see and we know this could be possible in place of the war and violence, in place of the over-aggrandized egos of the leaders, right? What more is possible? And there is so much more. And that's what's really exciting about this, is that we get to choose. And ultimately, as more and more people wake up to what's going on, and this transit is a major awakening for so many, and it's already happening with the North Node in Pisces, which I did a whole separate video about that I recommend and welcome you to watch. With the North Node in Pisces, it's this massive spiritual awakenings happening all around the world, especially while the North Node is in Pisces for a year and a half, from January 2025 to July 2026. As more and more people are waking up, as more and more people are saying, I do not accept this conditioning any longer. I do not accept the way I've been told my life has to be, or the way that the world has to be any longer. We are rising in numbers of those who will no longer consent to this. And we can make those changes as our numbers become larger. it's very, very exciting to think about what's possible. And we're going to enter into this space. And I feel this so strongly, so let's look back 2 and 3 years from now and see what's happened since this conjunction occurred. We are going to gain so much power as the awakening force, these huge waves, right? The tidal waves of humans coming through and having their awakening, that those in power are going to be overwhelmed by the sheer numbers of those who want change and who want something different. I'm going to share actually now an example of this. So let me go to this page here. I'm sure you've heard about this. It happened about a week ago in Nepal. So the people of Nepal have been under a lot of oppression. They have, and I am not an expert on this, but I have been reading up on this and studying it for the last week or so to try to learn more about it. So if I state anything not completely accurately, let me know in the comments if you know more about it. But from what I understand, the young people in Nepal especially are stepping up and saying, we're not going to accept this anymore. And essentially what was happening, again, from my understanding of the situation, is those in power are in the elder generations, like in their 70s and up, and they've been in power for a long, 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 long time. They've been putting forward the same rules and regulations for a long, long time. And there is this really strong call against nepotism. Nepotism is when those in power are only choosing those who they know and like to also take other positions of power. So essentially, there was the sense that young people can't even get a job. They don't even have a fair chance at getting a job in this country because, unless they're like friends with the guy at the top, they can't get a job. They can't move up in their class, in their income, right, in their financial future. And then the government took an action to shut down all of the main social media. So they shut down Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, all of these different ways that the young people, especially, are communicating. And that is when last Tuesday, protesters stormed this palace, which is where the parliament is held and the government buildings are held. And they set it on fire. And what's really fascinating about this is entering a whole new paradigm of how do we choose what our government even is? Because these young people, and they're claiming themselves as the Gen Zers, right? Generation Gen Z, they're rising up and saying, we're not going to take it anymore. And they even, and I'm going back to some notes that I have on another screen here, they even used this other platform, which I guess had not been shut down, which is called Discord, which is mainly used as a gaming platform, but it's also like a discussion board platform where the young people were organizing and coordinating with the military to select a new leader. And the military consented to say that this whole like pre-election process that had happened on Discord was valid and would be upheld. How interesting, right? So this is like technology coming in and being used in a whole new way. This is completely unheard of, completely unprecedented. So this is the kind of zone, and I'm not saying it's all going to be like this with fire, although that's a very Aries image, I will admit. This is not what we want, right? This kind of violence. But it is a really interesting study of how we are going to be reshaping the future by saying, I've had enough of this. I do not consent to it anymore. Large numbers of people who were previously powerless coming and rising up and taking the power into their own hands and choosing a new way. And maybe through unprecedented, methods like electing a new leader on Discord and having the military of the country recognize that, right? How unprecedented is that? So this is the kind of thing that we're talking about here, the complete shifts and changes of our belief systems and what we even perceive to be possible. So when I talk about that first degree of Aries, the 0 point, right? The 0 Aries point in the zodiac, we're really going to be able to clear the slate. We're clearing the slate for a new world order to emerge. We are fundamentally rethinking those concepts of how the world, economics, politics, culture, and more work. And there's this energy of the old system rapidly becoming obsolete, right? We are seeing so clearly in our world where the old way of doing things is no longer working. Democracies are falling apart, right? The systems and structures that help people to have a fair chance and rise up, like Social Security and these kinds of things, they're being dismantled. I mean, especially in the US, but I know this is happening in other places too. So as that old system becomes obsolete, we will be left with a vacuum. We will be left with what do we want to put in its place? And we're going to want to choose very powerfully. We're going to want to choose in the highest integrity. Another way that this is happening is in the economics. A completely new monetary paradigm is coming in with cryptocurrencies. And I find this so, so fascinating. I've been observing this very closely for many years now. And we want to be really careful with this because there are a lot of cryptocurrencies out there that are just nonsense, that are just going to be used to make a few people a whole lot of money, and then all the money is going to be taken out of it. So you want to be really careful what you invest in. But there is a huge potential here for those who are in, for example, countries where the exchange rate to the dollar or the euro or these, these currencies that hold more power in the world at this current time, the exchange rates are very low, right? So for example, South Africa, for example, many of the countries in South America and throughout Africa, they have very low exchange rates to the dollar, and it's very unfair to the people there because then they don't have the purchasing power in the world that others have. They don't have the ability to, to make investments, to buy things that others can. And that's not okay, right? That is not acceptable. And crypto is coming in and changing this because as cryptocurrencies come in, then people in those countries that maybe don't have, the benefit of the dollar are able to purchase Bitcoin, or they're able to purchase Ethereum, or they're able to purchase other cryptocurrencies that may gain in value. And as the dollar decreases in value, which is already happening, dollar, euro, all of these currencies are becoming very inflated, and they're going to be falling in value. And as cryptocurrencies rise in value, this creates a very interesting shift in the paradigms where possibly the global south may then be rising in its economic power as the global north is falling in its economic power, right? So this is another example, and Pluto in Aquarius is helping very much with this money and economic side of things, the financial side of things, to really revolutionize, to really let the old systems die, to let the new systems be born. But Saturn-Neptune conjunction is also a part of this. As I have mentioned in previous videos, I would be, and in this video too, I would be very careful about what you invest in as far as cryptocurrency, but I do believe that Bitcoin is a good investment, a good solid investment. The interesting thing is that Bitcoin is the only one of all these cryptocurrencies that is truly a money, that is truly a currency or a store of value. The other ones are all systems that were built to provide the infrastructure for Bitcoin. And that's the difference. All right. Bitcoin is put into place in a very different way that makes it much more secure. Now, nothing is a guaranteed investment, nothing in the world at all, not even stocks. But I do feel that Bitcoin is a positive investment. So I will put links below for more information if you want to learn more about Bitcoin. I do think it's a very solid investment. Of course, I am not a financial advisor, and all of that is, at each of our own risk as far as we invest. But, there is something here of, as this new world is being birthed, what decisions do you want to make in your life? Financial decisions being one of them, that will put you in a good place in the new world that is birthing. And I know for me, I want to invest in Bitcoin because as the power of the dollar falls, I want to have something that's going to hold real value over time, and that will put my family in a good financial state going forward. So these are things we want to consider. Now, AI is a huge part of the new world order, right? And I've shared some of my views about AI. I am very, very I will say untrusting of AI and the effects that it's having on us. And I also admit that it is going to be a part of our reality, and we do want to learn how to use it in positive ways. We want to be very thoughtful and intentional about how we're using AI. We don't want to be left behind by that train as it's leaving the station, right? So we want to learn about it. We want to educate ourselves about it. And we want to be very thoughtful and intentional about how we're using it. And we don't want to let it take the place of what our brain does always in the best way, right? So I will bring in here a side note that Saturn and Neptune, as they have their conjunction at 0 degrees of Aries, they are in a sextile to the one side, to Pluto and Aquarius, as I mentioned. On the other side, they're in a sextile to Uranus and Gemini. Now, Uranus and Gemini is this like rapidly evolving technology. And so we're going to see that. We're going to see this skyrocketing of new technologies we never imagined before, cryptocurrency, AI, all of these new technologies coming through. And what we want to be really clear about is we want to come back to the true technologies, the true sovereignty of our intuition, our own inner knowing, energy healing, so much that Neptune represents, right? Which is actually our true and original technology, the technology we hold in every cell, the technology that exists in the cosmos and on the earth, right? And not be actually limited by getting trapped in this paradigm of the AI and the what I would consider false new technologies that are coming in. I also think that with that Uranus and Gemini component, there's going to be a vast reawakening of the old knowledge, of the old traditions. I mean, this is already happening, right? I know so many people want to come to Egypt because we want to learn and receive those transmissions from the temples in Egypt. The rise in popularity of astrology is another example of that, right? This very, very ancient tool, this ancient language, this ancient technology that tells us the truth. It's coming back. It's coming back into our conscious awareness. So, as we discuss all of these different forms of technology, there's an invitation to you to be really clear, all right, and in your own highest integrity and in alignment with your own highest values about what technology do you choose to support in your life, to support you, that you want to amplify, that you want to let it grow, and we never want to become dependent upon AI. We never want to become dependent upon our cell phones, as another example, or any of these kinds of technologies that are that are built on a matrix that is not in alignment with our true original organic sovereignty, right? We want to be very, very conscientious about this. So we want to embrace and choose what are the new paradigms that we are selecting for ourselves, for our own lives, because it is all going to be changing. The rapid, rising curve of the change is not going to slow down everybody. This is the new normal, and it's going to even accelerate more from here. So we want to be really aware of what we're choosing. We want to make sure that we're not choosing by default. We want to make sure that we're not just choosing something like, getting sucked into the negative apocalyptic news, videos or something like that by default. We want to make sure that we are maintaining our sovereignty, staying clear about what we believe and what we truly value, right? Each and every one of us. And we want to claim the new paradigm in the way that's aligned for us in every way that we possibly can, right? Because again, we don't want to be left behind. We don't want to choose by default, and we don't want to be clinging to the old systems as they break down. So we want to really ensure that we're living in the new by embracing the new paradigms now, ahead of the curve. So everything that I've shared here, I know it can feel a little bit unsettling, right? It can feel like, wow, this is all happening so fast. This is all moving so quickly. And yeah, the old world is becoming obsolete. And oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I invite you to really take a deep breath. I invite you to really anchor into your own trust, your own intuition, your own knowing that we are always guided by a very high intelligence of creation in our universe. Your guides are all around you. Your highest self is supporting you in everything that you need. And we want to calm our nervous systems in this way. We want to always continually be making sure we're not getting sucked into the negative news. We're not getting sucked into the fearful energies, because that's all false. That is all false. We want to instead get clear on what our truth is and follow that. And this is an amazing quality of Aries, to be really focused, to be really certain and bold and courageous in choosing what we know is right, choosing what we know is true. And as we embrace the new paradigms more and more, we get to become a way shower, right? That's that pioneering energy of Aries, forging the new path, right? Becoming a pathfinder and helping others find their way out of the old crumbling realities. This is so much about, let's do this together. Let's break the false model of the world. Let's cut through the lies and illusions that have kept us trapped in the past, and let's break through to the true reality. Let's reconnect with our true and original technologies of our intuition, our healing abilities, and all that we know is true. And let's choose the future powerfully. So, this is the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, everybody. It is a very, very powerful time to be alive. Remember, you wanted to be here. We all wanted to be here right now. We all wanted to be living in this powerful time of change, because we each and every one of us have amazing gifts to bring forward and to contribute to the world, and to help make sure that as the old is breaking down, we are creating the best new paradigm version of this world that we possibly can. So I would love to hear in the comments, what do you think about it all? What resonates for you? And I also want to share with you, just briefly here, that course that I mentioned where I was sharing the slides from. And I think maybe many of you watching this video have attended this course that I recently taught. But if you haven't, you will definitely want to check this out. I have reopened this for a limited time, and it is a course all about the really powerful astrology of the malefic and outer planets. So there are some planets that are deemed malefic, especially Mars and Saturn, and that is just a false labeling, false categorization. And so in this course, I am showing you what is the more ancient meaning, such as we did here with Mars and Saturn briefly today. We'll go way deeper into it in the course. And then also, how are these planets working with us? So the outer planets include Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. We look at all four of those along with Mars. Mars is the activator of the four outer planets, as I explain in this class. So if you're interested in that, you can come and join by donation. There is not a set price for this course. You can come and check it out and see what you feel is the amount that you would like to donate to join. And so if you're interested in this, just look in the description field right below this video. You will find the link to it. I hope you'll love this course. And to those who've already taken the course, I hope you've enjoyed every minute of it. It's been so fun sharing it with you all. Okay, so with that, we will close the video for today. I hope that you've received so much from this. Again, it was a strong transmission. I have had so much energy coming through around this Saturn-Neptune conjunction and what it means for us, and what I wanted to convey to you here in this video, so that you can really embrace these energies as we get closer and closer to that exact conjunction in February. So if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. I would love to answer your questions. Anything that I mentioned in the video that was a link, I'll put that link in the description field right below. I'm sending you all so much love. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day, and I'll see you again soon. Mwah. Bye for now, everybody.